Max Verstappen just dropped a bomb on McLaren, and it could change everything about the final races of this championship. We'll break down what Verstappen uncovered, how he went from pit lane to podium in Brazil, and why McLaren's title lead may not be as clean as it looks. What if I told you McLaren's pace advantage isn't the whole story and that Verstappen has the data to prove it? Subscribe right now, because in the next few minutes, you'll understand why Verstappen may still be the biggest threat to Lando Norris's title dreams. Max Verstappen doesn't talk unless it matters. But after Brazil, he didn't just speak, he fired a warning. While the world was busy applauding Lando Norris's dominance, Verstappen quietly hinted at something much bigger beneath the surface. He suggested that McLaren's late-season speed surge may not be entirely clean. No accusations. No direct shots. Just a subtle statement laced with intent. Some teams are stretching the gray areas, and sooner or later, it shows. That was it. Just 10 words, but for those who've watched the sport long enough, it was a message. Because Verstappen isn't the kind of driver who gets rattled by pace. He respects talent. He respects fair play. What he doesn't tolerate is gamesmanship disguised as innovation. And with 3 races left in a championship still wide open, his words carry weight. Especially after a weekend like Brazil. Let's not forget Verstappen started from the pit lane after Red Bull made aggressive setup changes overnight. Most drivers would have aimed for damage limitation. Max didn't. He delivered one of the finest recovery drives of the hybrid era, slicing through the field, saving tires like a machine, and finishing on the podium. That third place wasn't just a result, it was a message. A statement of intent. While Norris celebrated, Verstappen was watching. Learning. Calculating. And now, with Laurent Mekies leading Red Bull and the old Horner structure dismantled, Verstappen is navigating more than just the racetrack. He's operating inside a team in transition and still performing like a world champion. Right now, Verstappen sits third in the standings with 341 points, trailing Norris by 49. But ask anyone who's been in a title fight, the gap isn't the threat, momentum is. And Verstappen just lit the fuse. And here's the twist: Verstappen's warning about McLaren didn't come from emotion. It came from data. Sources close to the Red Bull garage have confirmed that Verstappen and his engineers identified unusual behavior in McLaren's DRS deployment patterns in cornering differentials and telemetry. Is it illegal? No. But is it suspicious? Enough for Verstappen to go public. And that kind of move isn't random. It's calculated. It's pressure applied the Verstappen way. In a sport where margins are measured in thousands, even the smallest irregularity can spark investigations. Verstappen knows this. The paddock knows this. And McLaren? They've said nothing. No denial. No clarification. Just silence. And silence, in Formula One, is louder than any accusation. Especially when it comes from the one driver still capable of flipping this title race on its head. Verstappen's post-race comment wasn't accidental. When he hinted that some teams were stretching the gray areas, every paddock veteran knew exactly who he was referring to: McLaren. The timing was precise. Lando Norris had just dominated the Sao Paulo weekend, and McLaren's form had turned from impressive to suspiciously untouchable. Verstappen's warning was subtle, but deliberate. He wanted the conversation to begin. Because in Formula One, the real battles often start with whispers, not wheels. Inside the Red Bull garage, concerns about McLaren's rapid straight-line gains have been growing. Engineers have noticed telemetry patterns that suggest something is off, especially in how Norris and Piastri deploy DRS. Not illegal. Not confirmed. But different. Verstappen, a driver who reads data like others read track maps, didn't need a smoking gun. He just needed enough doubt. And in a title race this tight, even a hint of irregularity can tilt the mental advantage. Laurent Mekies now finds himself in an uncomfortable position. As Red Bull's new team principal, replacing Christian Horner, Mekies has to balance Verstappen's instincts with the team's public stance. Calling out a rival without evidence risks political backlash. Staying silent risks undermining his star driver.
Max chose to deflect in Brazil's press conference, but Verstappen didn't wait for permission. He laid the groundwork for scrutiny.
And now, the burden of proof is shifting from suspicion to spotlight.
This isn't just a mind game. It's about trust in the system. McLaren have been vocal about their innovations, but quiet about specifics.
Verstappen, meanwhile, has been surgical in what he says. He's not accusing, he's inviting others to look closer.
And in Formula One, that's often more dangerous.
Because when the FIA starts pulling data, it rarely stops at the first layer. What begins as a subtle telemetry anomaly can end in full compliance audits.
And here's the real tension: Verstappen's statement forces McLaren to react. They either respond with transparency or remain silent and feed the fire.
Every podium now comes with suspicion.
Every DRS pass will be analyzed frame by frame.
That's the power of strategic communication. Verstappen hasn't just challenged McLaren's pace, he's shifted the psychological pressure directly onto their shoulders.
And heading into the final 3 races, pressure is the last thing any team wants. For Verstappen, the stakes are massive. With 341 points, he's 49 behind Norris. The margin is tight, but the momentum is building. Brazil proved he doesn't need pole to make noise.
And with the integrity of McLaren's dominance now under question, Verstappen just opened the door for chaos, the kind of chaos where champions rise.
Laurent Max can't ignore it. McLaren can't escape it. And the fans?
They'll be watching every frame from now on. Max Verstappen's race in Brazil wasn't a recovery, it was a masterclass in control.
The decision to start from the pit lane wasn't a penalty, it was a choice. Red Bull's setup gamble overnight had pushed the car into park firm violations, but Verstappen didn't blink.
He understood the bigger picture. With poor balance in qualifying and a circuit like Interlagos favoring race pace over track position, Max knew he needed the car to work across long stints, not over one lap.
That decision, made behind closed garage doors, changed the trajectory of his Sunday.
What followed was one of the most clinical executions of a 3-stop strategy we've seen in recent years. While others tried to stretch 2 stints to manage degradation, Verstappen ran aggressively in clean air, targeting undercut windows and tire life sweet spots with machine-like accuracy.
His outlap deltas were perfect.
His in-lap precision made the data look pre-scripted. But this wasn't just numbers, it was Verstappen feeling the grip levels, adjusting brake migration, managing ERS deployment, and timing every attack to surgical perfection.
Interlagos punishes the impatient.
Push too early, and the softs melt.
Push too late, and the gaps are gone. Verstappen danced between both extremes. By lap 20, he was already inside the top 10.
By lap 35, the telemetry showed he was lapping faster than the leaders on older tires. That kind of feedback loop, driver to engineer to strategy board, only works when there's complete trust. And that trust, remarkably, is starting to solidify between Verstappen and Laurent Max. Remember, Max isn't Horner. He's not a showman. He's a technician, an engineer's engineer. And Verstappen? He doesn't need a cheerleader. He needs someone who lets him operate at full capacity. In Brazil, that happened. Max didn't interfere. He let Gianpiero Lambiase and Max run the race, and Red Bull nearly stole a win from the worst grid position possible.
That kind of execution doesn't just signal competence. It announces that Verstappen is driving this team technically, mentally, and strategically.
And we saw it in the way he overtook.
No desperate lunges.
No wild radio rants. Each move was calculated, harvesting energy through sectors 1 and 2, then striking in sector 3 where tire load shifts gave him just enough exit speed to line up DRS slingshots. Against Sainz, he played with brake pressure. Against Russell, he baited a false move. These weren't attacks, they were dismantlings.
Verstappen didn't just outdrive the others. He outthought them.
When the checkered flag fell and Max Verstappen stood on that podium, it wasn't the trophy that mattered, it was the message. Even from the pit lane, even with a team in flux, he can still rewrite the script.
He doesn't need pole. He doesn't need chaos. He just needs laps.
And now, with 3 races to go and Red Bull starting to regain structure under Max, Verstappen isn't chasing the championship. He's calculating it one corner at a time. Max Verstappen is not just racing for a title. He's playing chess while others play poker. In Brazil, he walked into the paddock under a cloud pit lane start, mechanical issues in qualifying, McLaren flying, and never flinched. No tantrums. No panic. He knew the media would focus on Norris. He knew Ferrari were desperate for points. He knew Red Bull was still adapting to life post-Horner. But instead of noise, Verstappen brought silence, the kind that unsettles. He didn't need the spotlight. He needed the right strategy, and that mindset changed everything. Mentally, Verstappen has evolved. Early in his career, he attacked everything, every corner, every overtake, every microphone. Now, he selects his moments with sniper-like accuracy. When he dropped that subtle bombshell about McLaren's gray areas, it wasn't frustration. It was precision. He knows the power of suggestion. A few words, well-timed, can shift an entire narrative. It's not about creating chaos, it's about creating doubt. And when doubt enters the minds of rivals mid-title fight, advantage swings fast. Internally at Red Bull, Verstappen's influence is becoming absolute. He doesn't run meetings. He doesn't campaign for control. He earns it with consistency, clarity, and results. After Brazil, even the junior strategists inside Milton Keynes admitted they no longer build simulations without Max's driving style in mind. That's not just trust. That's systemic influence. Laurent Max may wear the team principal badge, but Verstappen sets the tempo. He's the standard. The metronome. The reason everyone stays sharper than the spreadsheets.